Michigan State had a disappointing 2018, but can Mark Dantonio lead the Spartans to a bounce-back year in 2019? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
In 2016, Michigan State just went 3-9, but bounced back in 2017 with a 10-3 record. Last year, the Spartans started the season number 11 in the country, but finished the season unranked and 7-6 with a 7-6 loss to Oregon in their bowl game. I expect the Spartans to have another bounce-back year, much like they did in 2017 in 2019, and they certainly have the team to do it. They returned 9 starters on offense, but will need major improvement in their quarterback play if they want to have this bounce-back year and if they want to compete in the Big Ten. Brian Lewerke was phenomenal in 2017, but struggled majorly in 2018, throwing for just 2,040 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. And their backup, and Rocky Lombardi, who did play some last year, was not much better for the Spartans. So they're going to need drastic change in their quarterback play if they want to compete in 2019. They returned their entire offensive line, though, and Connor Hayward and Anthony Williams, a true freshman running back, will really benefit this Spartans offense. They do lose L.J. Scott, but they can rely on their running game, and I expect Williams, who, as I mentioned, is just a freshman, to make an immediate impact and try to boost this offense that only scored 18.7 points per game last year. On defense, though, that will certainly be the strength for Michigan State, much like it has been under Mark Dantonio. They returned 8 starters from a unit that just allowed 17.2 points per game last year, including a combined 26 points over their final 3 games. And their big-time leader, of course, is going to be Joe Bocci at linebacker, who had 102 tackles last year. So not only will he be the leader of the linebacking corps, but will be the leader of the entire defense in his final year with the Spartans. They open the season 2-0. We're going to give them easy wins over Tulsa and Western Michigan before they face off against Arizona State in a big-time revenge game for the Spartans, because last year they went on the road at Arizona State in the desert and fell as time expired 16-13 to the Sun Devils. Now, the key for Arizona State this year is, of course, going to be Eno Benjamin, their star running back who rushed for over 1,600 yards last year, and a guy I'm really high on in the Pac-12. But last year, Michigan State's defense only allowed 44 rushing yards. Manny Wilkins tore them up through the air. That was where Arizona State got the majority of their offense. Only allowed 44 rushing yards and 78 rushing yards per game last year. I expect that to be the same case this year, and Michigan State gets revenge over Arizona State because they will be facing off against, more than likely, Jaden Daniels, a freshman quarterback at Arizona State. And I think this is going to be the first true test for the Sun Devils, and especially with being on the road against a hungry and improved Michigan State team, it doesn't add up for a victory. Michigan State gets the revenge over Arizona State, and they are 3-0 to start the season. They go on the road to face off against Northwestern, and they have lost the past 3 games to the Wildcats. They lost by 10 points last year as 10-point favorites, and then last time they faced off at Northwestern, they lost in a triple overtime thriller by 8. So this is a Northwestern team that has given Michigan State fits the past couple years, as I mentioned, winning the past 3, and now bringing in a star quarterback in Hunter Johnson over from Clemson, a transfer quarterback. And keep in mind, Northwestern won the Big Ten West last year, so this is not an easy win or an easy game for Michigan State at all. But I do think they're able to go on the road. This will be one of the first true tests for Hunter Johnson as he becomes the quarterback of the Wildcats. I expect Northwestern to be competitive once again. Pat Fitzgerald continues to prove me wrong, continues to prove everybody wrong during his time at Northwestern. But I think the losing streak ends for Michigan State. I think they finally go on the road. They beat Northwestern, much due in part to a big game from their quarterbacks. I really do believe Brian Lewerke steps it up here, and Michigan State starts off the season 4-0. They are 5-0 after a win against Indiana, a team that Michigan State has not lost to at home since 2001. Last year, I believe they beat the Hoosiers 35-21, and this will certainly test Michigan State's defense, as Indiana, I think, will have a very improved offense going into 2019, but not enough to come on the road and beat the Spartans, which is still a very difficult place to play. Even when Michigan State's down, coming to Michigan State is a very difficult place to play. Spartans start off 5-0 before they go on the road to face their toughest test of the season in Ohio State. And this is a big one to determine who could maybe win the Big Ten East. You've got your elites in this division. You have Michigan, you have Ohio State, you have Michigan State and Penn State. Those are arguably your top 4 teams in that division. And every game between those four teams matters when it comes to the standings and could matter and when you're talking about the college football playoff. But going on the road to Ohio State, Michigan State has lost the last three to Ohio State, including a 48-3 loss the last time they went to Columbus. I expect this game to be much closer than the last time they were here, but they're not going to have a chance to beat the Buckeyes. They have 9 returning starters on defense. I could see this actually being a fairly low-scoring game, especially if Justin Fields struggles, much like we saw in the spring. But Michigan State does not have enough to come beat the Buckeyes. I know Ryan Day is a brand new head coach here, but they're still going to be one of the kings in the Big Ten. Michigan State takes their first loss of the season, and they are 5-1. Then they go on the road to face off against Wisconsin, who will once again boast another strong defense under Paul Chryst. Now, there's such a thing as a hangover, an Ohio State hangover, and we've seen it actually more so out of Penn State, who the past 2 seasons has lost by 1 point to Ohio State and then lost the following week to Michigan State. I think Michigan State is dealing, especially if it's a close game, dealing with an Ohio State hangover, and they fall on the road to Wisconsin. Madison is an extremely difficult place to play as well, and they boast one of the best running backs in the entire nation in Jonathan Taylor. And while Michigan State's rushing defense is one of the best in the nation, like I said, 78 yards per game allowed last year and just 44 allowed against Arizona State, I think Jonathan Taylor breaks through, creates enough plays for this Badgers offense, and whether it's Graham Mertz or Jack Cohn at quarterback, they step up in one of the biggest games of this season for the Badgers and get a clutch home win over Michigan State. And the Spartans drop their second in a row against quality opponents, both being on the road. They get a bye week going into this game against Penn State. And as I mentioned, Michigan State has upset the Nittany Lions the past 2 seasons. Of course, those are both coming off losses against Ohio State for the Nittany Lions. But last year, Michigan State came on the road, beat Penn State as the number 8 team in the country, scoring a game-winning touchdown with 19 seconds left. 2 years ago in 2017, they also beat Penn State when they were number 7 in the country. Penn State, of course, coming off a devastating 39-38 loss to the Buckeyes. This year, Penn State's without Trace McSorley, the all-time leading passer. They were without Miles Sanders, who rushed for over 1,000 yards last year for the Nittany Lions. A lot is changing for Penn State. They lost a lot to the transfers. They lost a lot in recruiting. And I think Michigan State, off this week of rest, only playing 1 game before another bye week, beat Penn State. They're still legit. They're still going to be tough in the Big Ten East, no doubt in my mind, but not enough to come on the road and beat this Michigan State team, who will improve drastically. Michigan State, a big-time win over the Nittany Lions, and a much-needed one at that. They get a bye week before they go play Illinois, a team that I've been impressed with on the recruiting trail. Lovie Smith doing a phenomenal job bringing in some big-time transfers for the Fighting Illini. And while Illinois probably will not make a bowl game in 2019, they very well could compete for one and be much more competitive than they had been in years past. Despite that, though, Michigan State, coming off a bye week of rest, at home against Illinois, Fighting Illini aren't there yet. They're not going to have enough to beat the Spartans, and Michigan State, another win for them in Big Ten play. And their final stretch of the season, 3 games left. Really the toughest game, of course, is this game at Michigan. And Michigan State has their number against Jim Harbaugh. I believe they've only lost twice to the Wolverines. And this year it's on the road at Michigan. Problem is, the Wolverines are off a bye, and the problem is that Michigan is a legitimate contender for the college football playoff in 2019. I know they lost a lot on the defensive side of the ball. It's there. Devin Bush and Rashawn Gary and Chase Winovich. We know all about that. But the offense is what has struggled at times during the Jim Harbaugh era at Michigan, and they're going to improve drastically in 2019, especially with Shea Patterson returning at quarterback, especially with some of his top wide receivers returning. I expect a big win for Michigan here, who has their sights set on a Big Ten title, which would be their first under Jim Harbaugh. They're trying to make their first appearance in the Big Ten title under Jim Harbaugh, and Michigan State will fall to their rival in the Wolverines, especially at the Big House. On the road against Rutgers, Michigan State lucky to survive the Scarlet Knights last year, only winning 14-10. That was a game that Michigan State hosted. Rutgers showed a lot of improvement down the road last season. Towards the end of the year, they were much more competitive. And I expect them to be much more competitive this year in 2019. Although that might not translate to wins for the Scarlet Knights, they will be competitive when it comes to the score. Even though it was 14-10 last year, I can see this game still being on the road against Rutgers, being maybe a 10 to 14 point victory for Michigan State, which is relatively close when you think about the struggles that Rutgers has had. But they will be able to go on the road and beat Rutgers, who also needs drastic quarterback improvement out of their guy in Artur Sitkowski. So a win for Michigan State here, and they close out the season against Maryland at home. And this is a team that Michigan State is very lucky to be hosting, because if they were on the road against Maryland, I would probably be picking the Terrapins in this one. They're a team that I think could be sneaky good. They're either going to be really good and shock everybody, or they're going to be very disappointing in Mike Locksley's first season. But with Josh Jackson coming in as a transfer quarterback from Virginia Tech, they get Anthony McFarland back at running back. It's going to be very tough to stop for any defense. This Maryland team can very well put up some points. And keep in mind, they have 5 returning starters on defense, and they're not going to be a pushover either. So I like this Terrapins team a lot. Whether or not they get to a bowl game remains to be seen, but Mike Locksley is building something. Regardless, though, in the season finale, they don't have a chance, or they're not going to be able to come in here and beat the Spartans. I think they keep it close for about 3 quarters. Michigan State pulls away late, and they beat the Terrapins to close out the season and finish 2019 with a 9-3 record. And that is exactly the bounce-back season that Mark Dantonio needs. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You never count out a Mark Dantonio team. One of my favorite head coaches in all of college football. Did a bad job in 2016, bounced back with a 10-win season in 17. Yes, they made a bowl game in 2018, but after starting out at number 11, they had bigger hopes than that. They had a major bounce-back year in 2019, winning 9 games in the regular season and a chance at another 10-win season if they can pull off a win in the bowl game. Michigan State will improve in 2019 and will remain a threat in the Big Ten. So do not sleep on Mark Dantonio and his Spartans in 2019. So guys, as always, thank you for watching us here. Go check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. Give us a follow and go visit our official website, thegridironexpert.com. For just $30, you can sign up for our expert picks, which will give you every single one of our college football spread picks for the 2019 season, including the postseason. And I can promise you that's a deal you do not want to pass up. So join our team. Sign up today only at thegridironexpert.com. And guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.